So TastyTrade recently pushed out a new backtesting application, and I wanted to take a look at it today. But for those of you that are unfamiliar with TastyTrade and some of their backtesting software, they had a backtesting program that they called Lookback. It was actually available on the Tasty Live website rather than a part of the TastyTrade platform. So it's part of Tasty Live, the content network, and it was called Lookback was the backtesting application. You go to lookback.tastylive.com/webapp and you can find the backtesting application here, Lookback, and you just enter a ticker symbol and you enter a strategy. And for example, if I want to run this backtest on SPY, selling 16 Delta Strangles from January 2006 until today, I could run that backtest. And then it spits out, the win rate, how many trades were examined over that time frame, the largest profit, largest loss, premium collected, profit per trade, days in trade, and then the profit per day. Now, this Lookback tool, it's been around for a couple of years, but they have kind of phased it out. In fact, unless you know the URL, you can't even find their Lookback tool on the Tasty Live website anymore. If I go to Tasty Live and I go to the tabs here, go to Trader Resources, you have option backtesting, learn about Lookback, and you would think that would take you to the Lookback tool. But no, they actually don't take you to that Lookback tool because they don't want you using that. They're working on a new backtesting software that's going to be a part of the TastyTrade platform rather than being here on Tasty Live. And if you use the web version of TastyTrade, so this is not available in the desktop application, you actually have to use the web trading platform of TastyTrade. You now have an option in the left-hand column here, if I pop this out to where you can see backtesting beta. So this is in beta, and if I click on backtesting, first you have to acknowledge that there's risk involved in options trading and you can't take anything that this backtest does seriously, yada yada yada. I agree to it. Now this is in very early infancy of this backtesting tool, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but already I kind of like it. It has some popular option strategies kind of built in, so if you want to test, any of these common option strategies, you just click the button and it creates that strategy for you. Now, I'm sure they plan on adding many more strategies in the future, but you can always create your own strategy up to 4 legs, and I'll show you how to do that. But first, let me test a short put in SPY. And when I say SPY, on the old Lookback tool, I could actually type in any ticker symbol I wanted on any stock or any ETF. Didn't support futures because futures are kind of weird. Each futures expiration is its own product, so it doesn't make sense to backtest futures. But I could backtest any equity product that I wanted, but here I am limited to this built-in list. So I only have about 10 things I can choose from, including SPY, Apple, Amazon, AVGO, which is Broadcom, Coinbase, DIA, which is the Dow Jones ETF, Gold, Google, IWM, which is Russell 2000, Meta, Microsoft, Netflix, Nvidia, the Qs, which is NASDAQ, Silver, and SMH, which is the semiconductor ETF, as well as SVIX and Tesla. So there's about 15 tickers that are built into this list, but still, I wish that I could type in any symbol I wanted to backtest. I'm sure that's coming, but again, this is kind of in beta right now. So let's run a backtest on selling a put, 1 contract, and for me, I like selling my puts at 20 deltas, and I like selling them at 60 DTE, so I'll change that. And do I want to use the exact DTE? So does it absolutely have to be 60 DTE? I'm going to tick that off, and that way there's a little wiggle room there in case there's not an exact expiration at the time of the trade for 60 DTE. Do you want to limit the number of active trades? Because you may not want a million of these things on at a single time, because that could affect, some of the P&L. So you could limit the number of trades or not. For me, I'm not going to limit the number of trades. However many trades it wants to take, I'm fine with it. Do I want to exit at a specific DTE? Yes, I'm going to exit at 21 DTE. Am I going to exit after a certain number of days in the trade? No, I'll leave that ticked off. Stop loss, I will not use a stop loss. Take profit, I will take profit at 50%. And then let's run the backtest. Now, being a bullish strategy, we know that short puts are definitely going to be very profitable on SPY, right? SPY does nothing but go up, so short puts are the trade to make. And you saw as it was running the simulation, we've slowly got this chart drawn, and you had a little progress bar up here, and depending on how many trades it needs to examine, the backtest could take a few minutes. In this case, this was a very quick back test. This was running, by the way, the date was December of 2022 until October of 2024. And if I scroll down a little bit, you can see my total profit and loss on these trades over that time frame. You can see average per trade, the maximum drawdown percentage, and the return on capital percentage as well. And this chart is interesting too, because the gray line is actually just a chart of SPY, nothing really to see there. That's just how SPY has acted, over the last 2 years. But the orange line is actually a P&L graph of our short put strategy here. So you get to see side by side how SPY tended to act compared to how your short put strategy in SPY tended to act. And in this case, they're very similar. Had you owned shares of SPY, you had done very well. And obviously, had you sold puts in SPY, you also did very well. Now, one thing to note here is this is not necessarily a gauge of whether selling puts or just holding shares of SPY, one is better than the other, because this is really not a P&L on SPY, as far as like the gray line here is just the share price of SPY. It has nothing to do with a P&L of holding shares or anything. That's just the stock price of SPY. But what really is interesting when you have the two lines here is you have how SPY acted on the stock chart, and then you have the option strategy line here, the orange line. And in many cases, you can see how in some cases, an option strategy kind of smooths out your P&L compared to just holding shares. Now, in this case of the short put, the short put was pretty volatile at times, especially during the August 5th volatility spike. This event here, if we really ignore that kind of once in a decade kind of event, this graph for the short put probably would have been pretty smooth here. Now, what's really cool about this new backtesting software is this is the summary tab here, what we're looking at here, but you can go into more detail. You can actually click on details here and go into this little chart here where you can see the trades that were profitable or the trades that were losers, which is kind of interesting. Also, you get more of a breakdown here as far as the number of the trades with profits, the profit rate, yada, yada, yada. And then for those of you that are extreme nerds, you can go into logs. Now, logs is each and every trade, right? This is essentially a spreadsheet of each and every trade. You get it broken down here, by date, and then you can see the ones that were profitable, the ones that were losers, and if you wanted to, you can actually download this. So you can actually download this as a CSV file. If I click download here, it's a CSV, common separated value. So this is the kind of type of file that you would import into your spreadsheet programs. For those of you that are Excel nerds and really like spreadsheeting a lot of things, obviously you're going to find this exceptionally useful. So this new backtesting software, again, it's in beta. It's still got a lot of work. Again, you're limited on what you can actually backtest as far as the underlines, but it is pretty neat. And of course, I mentioned that it has the pre-selected strategies, the predefined strategies, but if you wanted to, you could create your own unique strategies up to 4 legs. For example, if I not only wanted to sell a 20 delta put, but at the same time also buy a, for example, 40 delta call at 60 DTE, I could actually run a backtest on this rather strange strategy. This is not a typical kind of option strategy because it's really kind of a stupid trade. It's actually the same trade kind of 2 different ways, right? It's both bullish trades, a short put and a long call. It's kind of a double long. It's kind of what most people would call this. Some people would just call it a stupid trade because it doesn't make sense to sell the put and buy the call at the same time. But if I wanted to do that, I could, and I could actually backtest that strategy. And here you go. And once again, we get a nice little P&L graph, the orange line here, and you can see how the P&L graph compares to just the stock chart of SPY. And in this case, they act extremely similar. And that is because essentially a short put and a long call at the same time are essentially a synthetic long, meaning they act very similar to just owning shares of stock. And that is why the charts are practically mirror images. There's slight differences, but very slight in this case. So there you have it, a very quick look at the brand new backtesting software that's part of the TastyTrade web platform. I'm sure this is going to be a part of the desktop platform very soon, but right now, again, it's kind of in early days. It's in beta. For those of you that want something that's a little bit more fleshed out, check out the Lookback tool. I'll actually link to the Lookback tool in the show description because, again, you can't find the old Lookback tool anywhere on the Tasty Live website anymore, but it still kind of works. I will say that in my back testing using the Lookback tool, this is kind of flaky. Sometimes I get results that don't quite make sense. So really using any back testing software, regardless of what it is, never take anything at face value. Just don't ever, just have 100% complete faith that the results you get are necessarily accurate. Peace.